Hello, and thank you for joining me. Today we are taking a trip outside to gather a special summer ingredient to make several different things with it. The ingredient in question is elderflower. In this video we will make an elderflower soda, Elderflower Kombucha, Elderflower Liqueur, Elderflower Creme Fraiche, Elderflower Vinegar, and an Elderflower Beurre Blanc, so stick around. Elderflower is not something I was very familiar with when I lived in the States, though it does grow there. But once I came to Scandinavia, it didn't take me long to figure out that this is one of their quintessential summer blossoms. And now I also associate this flower with Danish summer. The days are long. The sky becomes a hazy, dreamy blue, when it's not raining, of course. There are wildflowers everywhere. The temperate sun allows for the greenery to stay very lush, and all the while the wind blows and blows and turns all the leaves and flowers into a churning sea of foliage. And then there is this star of the summer stage, the elderflower. Their fluffy, blossoming heads give off a sweet, funky, almost tropical aroma with a number of fun culinary possibilities. So let's capture the spirit of the season and transform these flowers into edible creations. First, you will need to find some elder trees that are flowering. Luckily, in the summer, this shouldn't be hard. This plant is famously hardy and not very picky about the soil it grows in, and they seem to thrive in the mild summers, so you will find a great number of them in northern Europe. I would advise seeking out trees that have flowers lower to the ground. While they do put out crazy amount of flowers, they can often be concentrated at the top of the tree, and because these trees are thin and spindly by nature, without a special ladder it can make getting these a challenge, so stick to the low ones. Aim for flowers that are in the peak of the flowering stage. Ones that aren't quite there yet will have many little white buds, and ones that are a bit older will have some discoloration and lose many flowers just from handling them. And of course, as with any foraging, be respectful and don't just go into someone's garden unless you have permission. Because of their weed-like prolificness, it won't take you long to gather a good amount of them. Back at the ranch, we can get into the cooking. And I will start with the Elderflower Syrup, which is the most simple recipe and has many different uses. While using the syrup to make a summery soft drink is the most common, don't be afraid to let your imagination run wild and try playing around with it in your mixology or even your baking. To start, we can prep our elderflowers. All we need to do is use scissors to trim the blossoms away from the thicker green stems below. We do this because the flavor is more concentrated in the flowers and not in the stems. You could be even more dedicated about this and really pluck away just the flowers, but this isn't Noma and I don't have an army of interns to help me, so I'm just doing this quick method. And this is just a simple syrup, so there is really no reason to be overly fastidious here. I would call this a couple big handfuls, but if you want a number to shoot for, I would say maybe about 200 grams. So I start by getting a liter of water into a pot, and I bring that up to a boil, and then we go in with our trimmed elderflowers. At the same time, I'm also tossing in a couple of lemons which have been washed and sliced. Now we give it a stir, drop it to a bare simmer, and let it go with the lid on for about 15 minutes. Now let that cool to room temperature. This will be faster if you put it in another container. And then put this flour and lemon mix in the fridge and let it sit overnight. The next day, strain out everything, making sure to give the flowers a good squeeze with clean hands for full flavor extraction. Now to make a basic simple syrup, the most common ratio is 1 part liquid to 1 part sugar. So whatever the volume of your liquid, in this case 1 liter, add the same amount in sugar. If you do it by weight, you'll end up with a slightly sweeter syrup as water is more dense than sugar, but either way, get the liquid and sugar in a pot over medium-high heat and simply heat and stir until the sugar has completely dissolved, and boom, you have an elderflower simple syrup. And now to turn this into a fizzy elderflower soda is very simple. Get a nice glass, fill it with ice, give yourself a squeeze of lemon or lime and a few slices of them as well. Now go in with a couple ounces of your syrup. Now pour in some sparkling water. give it a stir, and you have a really refreshing summertime drink. Adjust the sweetness to get it just how you like it. And this is a lovely soft drink, but there are also many ways to use it in cocktails. Have you seen this attractive Art Deco inspired bottle before? It's called St. Germain, and it's an Elderflower Liqueur that was actually only just recently created in 2007. Bartenders love it for its many uses, and the good news for you is that if you already have some elderflower syrup, it's really easy to make your own. Just mix 1 part of elderflower syrup with 1 part of a decent brand of vodka, and you have yourself a homemade St. Germain at a fraction of the cost. If my math is correct, this should give you about the same alcohol proof as St. Germain's. As mentioned, the applications are numerous, but consider looking up a recipe for a left bank martini. This is one of my favorite hot weather drinks. Now let's take a look at another non-alcoholic drink, or actually a very low alcohol drink technically. Let's make an Elderflower Kombucha. I'm taking this recipe straight out of the Noma Guide to Fermentation. Not to brag, but I have a special original edition where they made an oopsie and they put the sticker in the corner on upside down. So jumping right in, we will first need to make a slightly sweet tea. Start by heating 240 grams of sugar with 1,760 grams of water. Heat that until the sugar dissolves and the liquid reaches a bare simmer. Now add 300 grams of elderflower blossoms trimmed in the same way that I showed you earlier. Give that a stir to make sure the flowers are covered by the liquid. Kill the heat. Transfer everything to another container and let it cool to room temperature, and then let everything infuse in the fridge overnight. The next day we want to strain this liquid through a sieve, again squeezing to make sure we get all the goodness out. Now get your favorite fermentation vessel. I love this big glass jar that used to contain olives. I add in the elderflower tea. Then using a gloved hand we add in a healthy SCOBY. And we also add 200 grams of an unpasteurized kombucha. This process, which aids in fermentation, has the charming name backslopping. I'm using a tarragon and chrysanthemum kombucha that I made in my last batch. Now with all the components in the container, we just cover that with a breathable cloth, jot down the date so we know when the process began, and let it go in a warm place for 7 to 10 days. Check in daily to make sure the SCOBY is not drying out, and also taste it to see where the acidity is at. Once we have the taste where we like it, we can carefully remove that SCOBY, and this kombucha should be refrigerated and consumed right away, or you could bottle it if you want to build up some carbonation. This will take a few extra days in these swing stopper bottles. I will also need to strain this once again, as you can see, but I do love having some bubbles in there. This is a great probiotic drink on its own, but the fermentation guide also takes the time to give some suggestions for ways to use it beyond just drinking it. One of the suggestions is to make an elderflower infused creme fraiche, so that's just what I did. I did a half recipe of what is in the book, so that is 400 grams of cream, 100 grams of milk, and 100 grams of the elderflower kombucha. That is all mixed together and let to sit at room temperature for 2 to 3 days with a breathable cloth over it. The cream mixture will thicken, and as the book says, the elderflower will impart a floral accent to the soured cream, like a bloomy soft rind cheese. The book goes on to suggest using it with fresh summer peas, so I took that suggestion and ran with it. I shucked some peas, charred them briefly in my wok, then I put my fine dining hat on and got to plating. With the help of a ring mold, I put some of the Elderflower Creme Fraiche on the plate. I tossed the charred peas with some salt and a bit of pickled ramp stems from earlier this season. That seasoned pea mix got packed into the ring mold, and then I went to garnish with a mix of herbs that I gathered from the little garden in the courtyard. I had some lemon thyme, sage flowers, and onion blossoms. And hey, that looks pretty nice. Now I can charge a bunch of money for it. In the spirit of elevated applications, let's make an elderflower beurre blanc. But before we can do that, we need to make a vinegar infusion. And luckily, that's very easy. I literally just put some elderflowers in a jar and pour over a white wine vinegar and let it go for about a week. This is a great little trick to know because you can make a vinegar infusion with any ingredient really. Places like Noma go one step further by making their own vinegar, but I think just doing some custom infusions can go a long way, and I've seen some great chefs use this simple method. Sometimes to elevate your food, you just need to paint with more colors, and tricks like this are a great way to open up your color palette. So we have our infused vinegar here, so let's make a beurre. We start with some shallots, cracked peppercorn, and some of that elderflower vinegar, and we just reduce that down to au sec, or nearly dry, and then I add a little bit of cream, which some will call cheating, but I call a good insurance policy. Let that reduce slightly, and then we finish the sauce with plenty of butter until we have a luxurious sauce. Now you have a sauce that is rooted in French tradition with a bit of a new Nordic flair. Give it a taste, and you could consider finishing it with a little splash more of vinegar, or even a bit of that kombucha we made. And this is a great accompaniment to fish dishes, so try serving it with some seared scallops or a beautifully seared piece of whitefish. And so there you have it, our Elderflower tour has come to an end. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this overview of some of the ways you can use this summertime flower, and hopefully it gets the juices flowing in your own brain so you can come up with some of your own unique uses for these ingredients. If you enjoyed this video, please show me some appreciation by hitting the like button and subscribe for more videos like this one. I'm all about showing people how they are more than capable of pulling off the stuff they see cool chefs doing online and on TV, if you know the right cooking channel, of course. And comments are more than welcome if you have any questions or concerns. Some of you are very kind and say that you enjoy my videos when I see you in person, but don't be shy to put it on record in text below. For now, get out there, enjoy the summer while it lasts. Until next time, cheers.